Hi everybody, it's Diana Haley back with Hagen's A Challenge for the Actor. We are on chapter 24. That is the last chapter in this very thick, beautiful actor's Bible. And I'm actually going to put this chapter in particular into two parts because it is very, very long and she goes very in depth with it. I've been working on it because I've been trying to condense it as much as I possibly can, because otherwise this video would probably be like 30 minutes or so long, and I didn't want that. So here we go. Chapter 24 is scoring the role. She goes back to chapter 10, where I had the 6 questions that I gave everybody. The who am I, what are my circumstances, and what are my relationships. Those are the three questions we're going to go through today. It's just going to be more extensive now that we've gone through the rest of the book, and she feels like we've gotten enough details, and hopefully, if everyone's been doing their homework, enough practice in our rehearsals with our scripts and everything like that, to move forward onto this step and to really think everything through as far as our scripts and our plays are concerned. So, question 1, who am I? What is my present state of being? How do I perceive myself? What am I wearing? First of all, she does recommend that you review chapters 4 through 7, specifically for this one set of extended questions. And she does that because these are decisions that we have to make before really diving into like the lines. So a couple weeks ago, I talked about learning the content of your lines. This is the work that she was talking about, where if you are able to make these decisions based off of your lines, it's more than just lines. Now you're learning the content of your lines. You're learning why you're saying certain things to certain people. You're learning like the kind of position that your character is in. And then things just kind of flow naturally at that point. So go through 4 through 7. Where am I? Where did I just come from? Where am I going next? Now, don't confuse this part under the who am I sequence with like the setting of where you are. Where you are in this particular concept means where are you in your experience. So are you like, for example, are you homeless, so to speak? Are you living like a homeless person? Are you living as if you were poor, but you know, now you're trying to fight your way back up to the top? Where are you in your life? And also, I'm probably going to mention this again, but you have to make it in terms of I. I'm still practicing doing that, where when I'm talking with one of my acting coaches, I will say, and she says blah blah blah, and then she goes I, and I'm like, I say this and I say that, right? You have to say it in terms of I, because the more personable you can make it for yourself, the more the character really, no matter what character you ever play or you ever get casted as, it already lives inside of you. So saying it in terms of I does make it more personable. If you say she, it makes the gap just a lot bigger. Like, you're acting like another person. No, you're acting like yourself under these particular circumstances. So don't forget about that. So when you say, where am I? What is my present state of being, as a person? And being present in that moment, in whatever moment you are playing in the play or on set or anything like that, you've got to be in that present moment. Try meditation. I have been doing it and it's changing my life. I've been soaring through some of my auditions and things because I have learned how to become present in the moment as opposed to pretending I was somewhere that I wasn't, because then it comes very actory and then it doesn't feel very real. So being present in the moment is very important. Let's see. How do I perceive myself? So I'm late to the game. I'm sorry. I apologize. But I just watched Hamilton for the first time. I have Disney Plus. So I got to watch Hamilton. I was so excited about that. And I can't remember the lyrics, and I don't want to do a disservice by not reciting the lyrics properly. But one of the characters, I believe it's Jefferson. I've only watched it once, so forgive me. I think it's Jefferson. Is it Jefferson? I can't remember. Okay, but somebody basically says something about Hamilton, like they're like shutting him down, and they're like, oh, he dresses like he's rich, but he's not. Like, he acts like he's so high and mighty, but he's nothing, you know, like, so that whole number there is basically about taking him down. So how do I perceive myself? So if I was someone who was very poor, but I acted like I was rich, you know, or I was rich and I acted like I was poor because I needed something from them. That's where that need kind of comes from, is sometimes a character has to pretend that they're a particular status in order to get something that they need. Ooh, a really great example is in, oh my gosh, the name just escaped me. Oh dear. Okay, it's a Cinderella story where Drew Barrymore is a servant at her stepmother's mansion, big giant house thing, and she dresses up as a commoner so that she can go get one of her friends who's also a servant at the house and rescue him from going on a boat to be shipped to the Americas. So she pretends that she's higher than her status so that she can go do that. So that's like her need to do that. So in that sense, she has to perceive herself as something different than who she actually knows that she is in order to get something that she needs. So in a role like that, you know, where you have to pretend on top of pretending, you know, things like that will work. How you perceive yourself as just the character, that could go under self-esteem, and it can also be as well as how do you perceive yourself in relationship to somebody else. So if you are, for example, you're with your friends, you know, like, you know, you're part of the gang, you know, you're just like, hey, what's up guys, what's going on, you know, and like everything's relaxed, everything's calm, you guys are all hanging out, you know, it's a good time. You are going to perceive yourself completely differently to your new boss that you just got hired at like a week ago. You know, they're going to come up to you and say, hey, I need to talk to you. And you're going to go, okay, you know, like you're not going to see yourself like as if you're with one of your friends, or you're not going to see yourself as if you're with, you know, one of your siblings. It's going to be like a completely different perception of yourself in relationship to another character who is either above you or also below you, you know. And then you've got like those roles where teens will play bullies and things like that, like in Mean Girls, you know, Regina George, she acts high and mighty, she is the queen of the high school, and so she, you know, walks around like she's all that, and she, you know, it's like whatever she says goes, and she knows it and she takes advantage of it. And that's another aspect of relationships, is like, are you aware of your own circumstances? If you are aware, are you taking advantage of it? Is your character taking advantage of it? Or are you completely oblivious to it? And you want to kind of ask those questions, and those extensive questions specifically, especially when you know you're working either with drama or you're working with comedy. And I'll get to that. I will get to that later. As soon as I stop rambling, I will get to it. Okay. Oh, and also the way you dress is another way of how you can perceive yourself. Um, Oh, yes. And something else with the perception of the self can be like, do you as the character, do you yourself, are you striving for superiority, or are you striving for humbleness? Is there something inside of you, inside of your character, that of course is proven by the play or the script, that makes your character desire to change? Are they wanting to change themselves? And so they're, you know, for example, like they decide, okay, I'm going to go volunteer at the soup kitchen. Or if they're desiring for superiority, so they're going to go to the hottest party in town, you know, where all the rich people are, and they're going to try to fit in and, you know, act snobby or act however it is they feel like they need to. So those are also questions to ask as far as perception of the self is concerned. And then second question, what are my circumstances? This is where setting takes place. So it's not the who am I, you know, where am I in the present moment. That's all coming from experience. Those are coming from memories that the character has that can be supported by your script. I'm sorry, I'm like looking, I'm getting out of classes. So I'm looking up here and then I'm looking off to the side, and I should be looking directly at the camera, but yeah, okay. So the what time is it, where am I, what surrounds me, and what are the immediate circumstances? This is setting. Now this is like, what time is it? What day is it? What year is it? What city am I in? Am I outside? Am I inside? You can refer back to the other chapters where I talked about playing outside in a play or being inside. A really funny example would be like if you're hiding. Hiding is really, really fun. So say that you are involved in some kind of an affair, and you know somebody comes home, and you don't want your family or you don't want your roommate or whoever knowing what's going on. Maybe this person, you know, knows the roommate, and the roommate knows, and they have a really bad relationship, and now you've got to hide this person. So now you're hiding in a closet. And so like if you're having an argument with the person that's in the closet with you, you're not going to be going like, oh my God, I have to hide you. What are we going to do? Like, you're not going to be shouting. You're not going to be loud. It's like, what are you going to do? What are we doing? You have to jump out the window. Like, you know, you're going to be frustrated, but you're aware of your environment. You know what circumstances you are in right now, and you're understanding that like there's people walking around probably in your apartment or wherever. And so you have to keep it hush hush, right? So that one's a really fun one. So yeah, being aware of your environment and your immediate circumstances. And then it's always fun to watch, especially in comedy, to watch the actor kind of struggle inside, like being really kind of frazzled, trying to figure out what to do next, and trying to, you know, like put everything together, just, you know, essentially to get to the next to the next scene, to the next, you know, wherever they need to be. So so that's always really fun. Okay, so what are my relationships? That's the last question that we have here. How do I stand in relationships to the circumstances, the place, the objects, and other people related to my circumstances? Okay, so we'll just go back to the hiding the affair one. Let's say you're hiding and you like wait to hear who it is that, you know, starts talking. So you hear someone go, Diana, hey, aren't you home? Like, the stove's on, you know? So you got the stove on, right? And, you know, and then I'm like, oh, it's just my roommate, you know, Sissany or whatever. I don't know, I got that from the radio. it's just, you know, it's just my roommate. Okay, so this roommate's cool. Like, she doesn't care. So I go, okay, so we can just get dressed and then, you know, we'll just walk out silently and it's gonna be fine. Like, we just won't, you know, we'll just have to keep that secret between us or whatever, right? Okay, so like, that's where you stand with that person. Whereas if it was like your other roommate, like Chelsea, you know, she's the one that knows this guy, and you're like, oh my God, like, we have to figure out how to get you out of a 2-story window, you know? And you try to, you know, and then because you know that if you get caught, she's probably gonna throw you out. And if she throws you out, like, oh man, you're probably on the streets. You don't have another plan after that. So, you know, so then the stakes, because of that relationship, become even higher, you know. So that's just one example. I strongly recommend that when you are diving into a character, you not only dive into obviously just your own, but you dive into the other ones too. So looking at the other characters, you have to have, as far as your character, you have to have your opinion on your relationship, because you have a relationship with everybody, you know, whether it's good, bad, minimal, you know, completely indifferent, whatever the situation may be, you're going to have a relationship with everybody, but you also have to have an opinion about that relationship, and you have to have certain stakes attached to that opinion. So that's what makes everything really intense, and that's whether you are in comedy or drama. How you play that is totally different, but it puts the stakes in the scene, and you need those stakes in order for the scene to keep moving, in order for the audience to make them want to watch more, you know. And that is always the goal. Let's see. Making those opinions. And something also, drama versus comedy, is that you also have to ask yourself, if you are aware of the other people, like the other characters, if you know their opinions about you, if you know how they feel towards the relationship that you have. Like, you know, you have like those people that you're like, you know, they don't like me, and I just don't understand why, but I know that they don't. So you try to treat them, I mean, you either treat them like crap, or you treat them really nicely, because you want them to like you, because you don't see why they don't. You don't really understand. So maybe you're treating them nice because you want to understand. You know, maybe there's a complete misunderstanding as to why that is, and you're trying to figure that out. So, I mean, there's always those kinds of different possibilities. Now, whether you know those opinions or not, you also then have to decide, am I going to take advantage that I do know their opinions of me? And that can be comedy. Or don't know, and that can be comedy too. So again, it depends on what kind of script, what kind of play you're looking at. But view it from both angles. And I'll tell you why. You view them from both angles because of this next giant part. This next part, there was like 7 pages on this one single concept, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to break this down. But I'm gonna do my best. Bear with me. So in any conversation, a lot of people call them scenes. I've been told that it's better if you make them sound like conversations. That comes from my coaches, and it's made things a lot easier. It makes things less actory, a little bit more human. So I like to call them conversations. So in conversations, there is always a give and take, push or pull, leader follower, and she goes through all 3 of those. And you don't want to read a scene with your scene partner, essentially, and kind of decide there who the leader or who the follower is. Me personally, I don't think it makes an interesting scene if there's like a decided leader and a decided follower. I think if there's banter going back and forth, it makes everybody go, what are they going to say next? What are they going to say next? Who's this person going to say next? What, you know, and it kind of makes you go back and forth, but it makes you want to continuously watch. It's kind of like watching, for me, it's like watching Friends, you know, when they get into like those very quick comedic arguments and they just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They're not deciding right there who the leader or who the follower is in that conversation, in that scene. They're just going back and forth with each other, and you don't know who's gonna win. Oh, but you're enjoying watching it. It's funny, or it's dramatic, or, you know, whatever the situation may be, it makes you want to watch more. And that is, again, always the goal. So, and the leader and the follower, if you really want to play it like that, the leader is not always the person that starts the conversation. Sometimes the follower turns into the leader, and that's the point that I want to make, is that a leader and follower, they can really switch on and off roles. It just makes it more interesting to watch. And what makes the conversations even more interesting is when neither I will say character A or character B knows who the leader or who the follower is gonna be, you know. But the point is that there's more to watch. The point is that there's a conflict here and a resolution is going to follow afterwards. We just don't know, because in real life, we don't know who's going to win an argument. We don't know who is going to get their point across and ultimately like win the conversation. We have no idea. It's not like someone starts a conversation with you and you go, oh, well, whatever point they make, you know, I guess I'm just going to have to go with that. No, you have an opinion. You have a relationship with this person. You have an opinion of that relationship with that person. You also understand their opinion of the relationship they believe that they have with you, you know, and if you don't, that's drama, but can turn into comedy. And if you really don't in general, or you do, like, you have to decide whether you're going to take advantage of that. So that's where that back and forth kind of conversation goes. And it really makes for a very juicy scene, because everybody has an opinion on everything that they hear, which is in the listening chapter, and everything that they say, which I think is in the same chapter. I can't remember what chapter that was, but it's there. So think about that while you are doing your scenes or conversations. She talked about ages for a long time. And I remember a long time ago where one of my acting teachers talked to me and he asked me, he goes, how old are you? And I wasn't sure whether he was asking, I was really, really young. I think it was like 17. But I wasn't sure whether he was asking me like the character in the play. I wasn't sure if it was a rhetorical question. I wasn't sure as to why it mattered. The only way that I can see that this matters is in the it's like an extra factor in the relationship sequence. So the extra, it's just kind of like when people say you talk to your mom like that, you know, or like, how could you talk to a little kid like that? You know, they're 9, you know, like that's, I feel like that's where, you know, a character could essentially appropriately be talking to somebody who's younger or who's older. I feel like that's just kind of like a relationship factor. I believe as far as playing a certain age, whether you're younger or older, that's a lot of theater stuff, which I think people of the theater, they just, just had it, you know. They put the makeup on, and they don't assume too much. They don't always play like, oh, I'm playing old or I'm playing young, like besides the voice maybe. But like other than that, everyone's kind of, I feel like especially in this society, it's kind of like feeling, or age is just a feeling. You know, you feel as, or you're as old as you feel, or whatever that saying is. You know what I'm talking about. So that's kind of where I'm gonna go with that. I think that's about as far as I'm gonna go with that. Let's see, more stuff. This chapter is really long. I think this video is probably gonna end up being about 30 or 40 minutes anyways, because this chapter is so in depth. Okay, so now we go to villains versus hero. This is kind of something I made up on my own. This is just something I kind of just thought of while I was reading. So this is kind of mine. She was still talking about scenes and the whole like give and take, push and pull kind of thing. And I put this after the leader versus follower concept, because it goes on. You know, if it goes on throughout the whole film, or it goes on throughout the entire play, essentially at the end of the movie, the audience decides who was the villain, who was the hero. So for example, in Maleficent, you know, Angelina Jolie, she plays Maleficent, and you figure that she is the villain the whole time. But at the end, she really ends up being a hero. And, you know, we understand why she becomes the villain. Another beautiful film, which I absolutely love, is Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. Obviously, he earned that Oscar, and he was truly able to justify the Joker and why he became who he became. The whole movie was just this brilliant character development, and I couldn't say enough about his performance. I don't think anybody can say enough about his performance and his creativity, and even his improv that he put into the film himself. It was just absolutely incredible. But he was able to justify his push and pull. He was able to justify why he was the Joker, why he was, you know, essentially, he was seen as a villain for most people, but for other people, he was seen as a hero. You know, he was pointing out certain things like throughout the entire movie that, you know, were wrong in our society, and he, you know, he really, oh God, I just could not say enough. And, but I probably have. You know, and the same thing with a hero. A hero also has to justify why he does certain things. So anything in the scene that makes you good or bad, you know, you have to justify those things. Also, she does mention a particular villain who I am very familiar with, where I can't remember what play she used, but there is this woman who essentially takes advantage of her manipulative ways, and essentially, like from what she described, is a like high functioning narcissist. And I knew all too well, and I know all too well of people that are like that, people that, you know, use the whole gaslighting thing, who kind of try to alter people's realities, and they put people down to make themselves feel better, and they're very push and pull themselves. Like they almost do all the pushing, but then they also do the pulling, and it's very back and forth, hot and cold kind of temperatures. And so basically what Uta Hagen suggests is that, you know, this character knows that that's what she's doing. She knows she's capable of manipulating her partner, her scene partner, or the other characters, and she uses that to her advantage, but she justifies it. So what I got from that is that when you read a script, and I've just started doing this, and it's really done tremendously for my auditions, is that when you are reading a script, you almost need to read it as if you don't have a role at all. You are just reading it just to read it. And when you read it for the first time, you, the person, you have to make the judgment yourself. You have to make your own judgment as to who these people are. And if it just happens to be the role that you're casted in as someone who's manipulative and knows that they're manipulative, or is evil and knows that they're evil, you almost have to discreetly show it. You almost have to like cover it up so discreetly, but it's almost like you have to discreetly cover it up to your scene partner, but both you and the audience knows what you're up to. And that's it's so sneaky. But that for sure is something that you got to watch out for in your scripts and in your roles, because it also affects your relationships, and it affects their relationships towards you. And that's where we get that character and relationship development. One more thing. So she talks about again, judgment. This whole chapter, or at least this section for part 3, is really about judging your character and judging other people's characters and their relationships and such. So this one I thought is a nice way to end this. But when we hear about somebody for the first time, and I'll give you an example. When I heard about a particular big name in Hollywood, I was like, okay. And it was weird because Uta Hagen mentions it, and she says, when you hear about a name, someone you haven't seen before, someone you've never heard of before, etc., you automatically start to think of what they look like, what they wear, if they have an accent, what they do for a living, etc. And so certainly I did. And then I looked up the person and I was like, oh, well, they look completely different than what I thought they were going to look like. And they look, much nicer. They look so humble. They look professional, like wasn't any average Joe, right? So, and I feel like that happens a lot in romantic comedies. And we all can think of a romantic comedy where somebody thinks of somebody and goes, oh, well, I just bet they're a piece of trash, and then they meet them and all of a sudden, oh my God, it's love at first sight. And the one movie that I could really think of that does this quite well is You've Got Mail with Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, where Meg Ryan is, she struggles to keep up her bookstore. It's her mother's bookstore. And it's about to close down because some guy named Joe Fox, terrible name, right? He's about to open up like Barnes Noble on steroids, right? And so she's all miffed about it, and she doesn't know who this Joe Fox guy is, right? And she goes, Joe Fox, right? And then she meets him, and obviously she can't stand him. But then, as the emails come in and things like that, like she ends up, falling in love with this guy that she's been sending emails to. But she keeps just so happening running into Joe Fox. And so by accident, And after that judgment has happened, we're watching this relationship develop, and it just becomes love and the whole 9 yards and everything like that. So you see that a lot in romantic comedies. So yeah, I would watch for those. So so in your scripts, while you are reviewing these questions, just remember there is not only character development, but there is also relationship development. And you have to be able to discern your opinions of the relationship you have with other people as well as yourself. And then you also have to decide whether your character is aware or unaware of the relationships and the opinions they have of you and your character, and what kind of conflicts will arise if you don't see eye to eye, so to speak. So that's it for that. I'm sorry this video was so long. Oh man, I could not condense it any further than I could, and I'm always blabbing my mouth. My Italian genes are showing. Okay, so that's it for this one. The next video I'm gonna do as quickly as I can. I'm pretty heavily involved right now as far as my classes and my auditions and things like that are concerned. So chapter 24 part 2 is coming soon, and then I still think I'm going to be doing my other book that I had purchased, but I'm not sure how different it's going to be from this one. But either way, I've got some monologues coming up as well, and if you don't subscribe to this channel, feel free to follow me on my Instagram account. I'm going to put it down in the description below, and you can follow me there, and I usually follow back. I'm not one of those people. So it was nice doing this again. I've missed doing it, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye. Let me see. Click my thing. Click. Is it working?